Story 1. The Mysterious Visitor at the Oakwood Convenience Store. In the heart of Oakwood, where suburban calm met the wilderness, there was a tale whispered among the locals, a tale that revolved around a seemingly ordinary convenience store. But as Ben would soon discover, not everything is as mundane as it appears. Ben, a young man with aspirations of attending college, had taken up a night job at the Oakwood Convenience Store. It was situated on the edge of town, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to come alive under the moonlight. The job was simple enough: restock the shelves, manage the register, and occasionally indulge in late-night TV shows. However, 6 months into his tenure, the veil of normalcy would be shattered. One winter night, as the clock struck midnight and the world outside was blanketed in snow, the doorbell jingled. Breaking the silence, it signaled the entry of a customer. Ben looked up from his tasks and saw a man cloaked in a heavy coat. His face, hidden beneath a hood, was barely discernible. Odd time for someone to shop, Ben thought, trying to ease the unease that had suddenly gripped him. The stranger moved through the aisles with a seeming lack of purpose, as if he was more interested in the store itself than its wares. Ben's discomfort grew when he noticed something inexplicable. The store's security mirror showed no face beneath the man's hood, just an abyss of darkness. Pushing aside the rising panic, Ben chalked it up to a trick of the dim lighting. The man eventually approached the counter with a few items. Ben, mustering courage, tried to engage him in conversation, but the stranger remained silent. He handed over a crumpled bill, and as their hands briefly touched, Ben felt an icy chill, as if he'd touched the void itself. The stranger turned to leave, but as he approached the exit, the doorbell jingled in a way that felt eerily distorted, as if resonating from another realm. When Ben blinked, the man had vanished, leaving no footprints in the fresh snow outside. Hours turned into an eternity as Ben tried to process the night's events. He felt an oppressive presence, as though the store had become a nexus for otherworldly energies. When dawn's first light started to filter through, the doorbell rang again. And there he was, the hooded man, standing just beyond the entrance, holding something in his outstretched hand, a withered, blackened rose. "Take it," the man whispered, his voice a chilling gust of wind. Ben, paralyzed by fear, could only watch as the rose dropped to the floor, its petals disintegrating into ash. The days that followed were a blur for Ben. He was plagued by nightmares of the hooded figure, of endless woods, and of the haunting chime of the doorbell. The final straw came when he received a letter with no return address. Inside was a note, written in shaky handwriting: "Thank you for the brief company. Remember, the veil between our worlds is thinner than you think." Ben immediately resigned, unwilling to spend another night in the store's eerie embrace. The Oakwood Convenience Store, with its dark visitor, became the stuff of local legend. And while many dismissed it as just another ghost story, those who had experienced its haunting presence knew better. The store stood as a reminder that sometimes, in the most mundane places, mysteries of the unknown can unfold. Story 2. The Haunting of Black Ridge Penitentiary. Perched atop a desolate hill, Black Ridge Penitentiary cast a menacing shadow over the town below. Its towering walls, forged from cold, gray stone, had witnessed decades of darkness, despair, and dread. For David, a seasoned prison guard, these walls were a constant reminder of the malevolence that resided within. Yet, nothing in his years of service could have prepared him for the events of one harrowing night. David's tenure at Black Ridge was characterized by monotony. Night after night, the long corridors echoed with the clinking of chains, the murmurs of inmates, and the occasional shouts of fellow guards. The prison seemed to be alive, pulsating with its own sinister energy. But on that fateful night, everything changed. The evening began routinely. As David took his post, he exchanged nods with fellow guards, their faces etched with the weariness of the job. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed softly, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. On this particular night, David was stationed in the control room, surrounded by a bank of security monitors. As he glanced over the screens, one particular cell caught his attention: 13B. Supposedly empty, the monitor displayed a shadowy figure huddled in its corner. Its presence was unsettling, its stillness even more so. David radioed a floor guard to investigate. As the guard entered the cell, the screen went static. Moments turned into an eternity. When the static cleared, a sight of horror met David's eyes. The guard, suspended mid-air, contorted and lifeless. Blood dripped from his open mouth, and his eyes stared blankly, filled with terror. Panic ensued. The other guards, alerted by the commotion, rushed to the scene. The cell's emergency lights bathed everything in a chilling red hue. Attempts to revive the guard were in vain. The official report later deemed it an unexplained accident, but David and the others knew better. In the aftermath, a palpable change swept through Black Ridge. The once familiar sounds took on a more sinister tone. Whispers filled the air, promises of impending doom made by voices unknown. The shadows seemed to move with intent, and David felt an ever-present gaze upon him. It was during one of his nightly rounds when David came face to face with the very embodiment of the penitentiary's darkness. There, in the middle of a corridor, stood the shadowy figure he had seen on the monitor. It emanated malevolence, its eyes burning like fiery coals. David's flashlight beam passed right through it. The figure didn't advance, but its mere presence was enough to fill the air with an unspeakable dread. Word of the apparition spread among the guards, but many dismissed it as mere hallucinations, attributing it to the stress and isolation of the night shift. But David knew otherwise. He had seen the true nature of Black Ridge, a malevolent force that had seeped into the very essence of the prison. Unable to bear the torment any longer, David resigned, leaving behind the horrors of Black Ridge Penitentiary. But the memories of that night, the whispers, and the haunting figure, never left him. They served as a chilling reminder of the ancient malevolence he had encountered, a force that had claimed the prison as its own and continued to await its next unsuspecting victim. Story 3. The Eerie Night Shift at the Hospital. In the quiet town of Elmsworth, nestled amidst rolling hills and picturesque landscapes, stood a hospital with a history stretching back decades. To many, it was a beacon of hope, a place where life began and, sometimes, where it ended. But to David, a dedicated nurse, it was a place of lingering dread that intensified during the night shift. As the world outside was enveloped in the embrace of nighttime, David's shift would begin. With the steady hum of fluorescent lights above and the echoing emptiness of the hospital's expansive hallways, the atmosphere was almost palpable with an eerie quietude. It wasn't just the solitude. It was the weight of countless stories, of joy and sorrow, that the walls seemed to have absorbed over the years. One fateful night, as David was immersed in his routine tasks at the dimly lit nurses' station, a faint whisper reached his ears. Dismissing it as a product of exhaustion, he continued his work. But then, clearer and filled with desperation, it came again. "Help me." Tracing the source of the sound, David found himself drawn towards the old psychiatric ward. Long abandoned and steeped in rumors, it was a place no one ventured into. But duty and curiosity propelled him forward. As he entered the ward, an eerie greenish glow from an emergency exit sign barely illuminated the room. But what truly sent shivers down his spine was the figure huddled in the corner, a woman, with hollow eyes, grimy skin, and a visage of sheer terror. Before he could act, she lunged at him, her shrieks echoing through the halls. David fled in panic, ensuring the ward's door slammed shut behind him. Calling for security, they ventured back to the room, only to find it empty, with no trace of the mysterious woman. The rest of the night was a cacophony of whispered voices and distant cries echoing through the corridors, but every investigation led to nothing. By the time dawn broke, David was desperate to leave behind the haunting memories of that night. However, the events took an even more chilling turn when he received an anonymous letter days later, thanking him and hinting at the unseen presences that lurked in the hospital's shadows. Though David never returned to the hospital, the memories remained, forever reminding him of that chilling encounter during his eerie night shift at the hospital.